Of an intro. So, thank you, Ross. I'm one of the directors of Mission Performance Limited. I'll leave the introduction to the business to Chris, who's going to be introducing himself in a second. As Ross said, we are beneficiaries of the Kickstart scheme, have first direct experience, and we have lucky enough to be joined by Holly and Misha, who were press ganged, encouraged to come onto the session this morning. So we can hear from their perspective firsthand. So welcome, Holly and Misha. So we're now going to turn to our panel. And Kerry, would you like to introduce yourself and give an overview of your role in the Kickstart program, please?
Yeah, so my name's Kerry Honey. I'm one of the senior district Kickstart account managers for DWP. Our district covers Dorset, Wiltshire, Hampshire and the Isle of Wight, so quite a big patch that we cover. And I'm also the account manager for Hampshire Chamber of Commerce, and my contact there is Coral, who you'll be hearing from later. So my role is to work with Coral to look after her as a gateway organisation. Out of interest, we have about 40 gateway organisations across our district. So, it's a busy time. We've had an awful lot of interest in the Kickstart programme, which is brilliant. And to give you just a little bit of background, just for anybody who isn't quite aware what the Kickstart scheme is, it was brought in by the Chancellor last year as part of the Plan for Jobs. So we know that during any difficult time and any recession, our younger customers, and for us young people are aged 18 to 24, are always hit hardest by any recession and can suffer then from long-term unemployment. So the idea with Kickstart is that these are created vacancies, so not part of a normal recruitment. So these are in addition to what you would normally recruit. They are 6-month placements that hopefully, should the economy recover enough and the young person have proved their worth to you, that you will want to keep on. But if not, a 6-month placement where you will receive a grant from DWP to cover the wages for 25 hours per week across those 6 months. The idea being that if you can't keep that young person on, you will at least have been able to give them 6 months of meaningful work experience and be able to support them with employability skills and other training so that they are able to move on into a sustainable job. I'm here this morning to answer any of your questions that you have around the Kickstart scheme. And a few questions were posed before the meeting, which I've noted down, and I can talk about them at the appropriate time. But I'll leave it there for now for the introduction. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kerry. And I'd encourage you, you'll probably have lots of questions. You can start typing those now and putting those in the chat so that we can keep the questions flowing to Kerry and her colleagues. So, Coral, would you like to go next?
Well, I'm Coral Benham. My day job was membership manager with the Hampshire Chamber of Commerce, but I'm the lead on the Kickstart scheme. I have also got my colleague in the audience there somewhere, Julie, and she helps me manfully with some of the administration because we do have quite a lot of it now. We agreed early on, back in September when this first happened, that the Chamber of Commerce would be involved in the Kickstart scheme because our job is to help businesses, and we felt that this really could a two-edged sword. It could help businesses and it could help young people. Many of the businesses got off to a flying start. It was a bit slow when we first got approvals. We do seem to have hit a stalemate at the moment for getting approvals, but when everything is working beautifully, it works very well and everyone has been very happy. So as a gateway, we let everyone know, we've put stuff out on social media, we get the application forms through, we do our own due diligence to make sure as best we can that everyone will go through the Kickstart approval and end up with a young person. The young people obviously have got the employment. Some young people have been in their positions for 3 months now, and it all seems to be going lovely. As for the businesses, we do whatever we can to help them through, handhold, give them information, as we get the information, because if we haven't had it, we can't share. But everything we've got, we have been sharing with everyone else. And I'm
Great.
just waiting for lots of questions.
Thanks, Coral. Coral, you've been a brilliant and superb help to us as a business. So I'm hoping you share some of that wisdom with others in the audience. So Chris, over to you, sir.
I'm Chris McLeod. I'm a fellow founding director of Mission Performance. For those of you that have not been on the session before, Mission Performance, we're a learning development consultancy. We're based in Hampshire. We've been around for about 20 years, and we specialise in delivering training services, learning services to organisations in UK and around the world. And in terms of the context for Kickstart, as a business, we were hit hard by the pandemic initially, and we deliver our services, or pre-COVID delivering services, predominantly face-to-face training in classrooms, either with clients or out and about on different locations, but face-to-face training services essentially. Obviously that stopped almost overnight with COVID, and we then had to sort of rapidly assess how we were going to get through the process and transform our organisation to a learning organisation that could deliver our training services online, as we are at the moment on Zoom or on Teams, etc. So quite a significant change. And that would also require a different gearing for our organisation. So what we could charge for a day in the classroom is very different to what we could charge for webinars and online training services. And it became quite apparent to us that we would have to improve our marketing in order to sell more to earn the same. And over the process or the time of the pandemic, we've got stuck into that and really made some good ground. And through our engagement with Hampshire Chamber of Commerce and Ross and the team, we then heard about the Kickstart scheme. And once we learned a little bit more about it, we decided that it may be a good idea for us to look into engaging with the scheme and recruiting some additional manpower, specifically around marketing and graphic design, to help us reach out in a new way and build that additional capability. So for us, it was a very real requirement that would actually help our business rather than just an altruistic, let's help the youngsters that are struggling with COVID as well. And we think that's really important. We're a small business. We didn't want just to recruit for the sake of it. We wanted to create a win-win and be very, certainly selective about who we were going to engage with in order for them to be able to provide a meaningful role within our business and integrate within our business and really add value and be part of the team. And that would be better for them and certainly better for us as a business. And we've got Holly and Misha, who are our two Kickstart graduates on the call today. Do you want to wave, Holly and Misha? I'm sure they'll be around for some questions later on, but I'll just talk you through our process. So we heard about the Kickstart scheme last summer, and Coral provided us the information that we needed to engage with that. We were provided with a template that we completed, not just job descriptions of the roles that we were looking for, but actually quite a bit of company information to make sure that we were, it was sort of due diligence. And then there was once we'd submitted all of that documentation, there actually was quite a wait. And this was, I think, as the government's they announced the scheme, and it was about 6 months or so before the scheme went live. So there was a long wait, and eventually the job descriptions and the application process went live at the job centre. So that's what I understand happened. And then we started to receive CVs, and we went through quite a rigorous selection procedure, and the principle of it creating a win-win was very important, that we didn't sort of recruit too many and absolutely the right people for the role. So we received about, I think, 25 applications for two graduate Kickstart roles. So we were looking for graduates, and a marketing graduate and a graphic design graduate who would have a specific job description about taking our new proposition out there and supporting us, to get through the pandemic, essentially, as part of our business development and marketing team. We went through the interview selection and the process, weeding out the CVs. We interviewed about 12, and eventually interviewed Holly and Misha. We then met them firsthand. They met the team, and then we decided that they were right for us as a business. So and they're now fully integrated. I think we're how many weeks in? About 10 weeks in now, I think, thereabouts. And we've really tried to fully integrate them to our team. We're a small team, on the new business park at Daedalus, and in an office down there. And Holly and Misha work 4 days a week. We have a set of sort of marketing and graphic design objectives, and they're also engaged with training. So part and parcel of the process of engaging with the recruits is that as a company, you have to commit to the employability training for the recruits. And the employability training is actually quite basic. It's to provide CV and cover letter and interview technique training. So we do that in-house. And as a training organisation also, we've encouraged and provided the opportunity for Holly and Misha to take part in training that we're actually delivering to clients, so they're able to benefit from that as well. Yeah, and it's going really, really well, and we're really pleased. And for us, it's been absolutely the right thing to do, and it's a breath of fresh air having two bright, young, enthusiastic graduates within our business who can really add value and learn with support that we're happy to give, but also add real value to our business in terms of our strategy and getting through COVID as a pandemic. So I'm happy to take, there's a lot more detail I could go into. I'm happy to take any questions from anybody. And Rob, back to you, or any questions?
No, that's great, Chris. Thank you. That gives us a really good overview, and we have some good experience to share with you. So thank you, panel. We got the questions coming in fast and furious, and so we're going to go through them one by one. If you're happy to switch your video on and direct your question, then that you're very welcome to do so. I'm going to ask the first question. It comes from the HR department, so encourage you to change your names if you're coming in as HR department, so we know who you're speaking to as a person. But the question is, can we amend the current placement title? Maybe that's something for you, Coral.
Yes, absolutely. Normally I let Kerry know, and I let the job placement team know, and then it's agreed. So if they want to change their vacancies, I've had job descriptions changed as well, and it's been done with a minimum amount of fuss. That's
brilliant. Let's say we're going to stick with you, Coral, and we're going to come on to the question of delays. So this is from Lily. Again, Lily, you're very welcome to put this question to the floor if you wish. It's about submitting some requests in April and there's been a bit of a delay. How can that be sped up for Lily, Coral?
I think that's a question for Kerry.
Is it?
Sorry.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to answer that one. So, Coral, are you happy for me to divulge what I told you yesterday?
Yes, but I have a question on that, because the ones that have been waiting 3 months didn't take it over the 800, did they? Or did they?
So, yeah, so it does get a little bit complicated, but I'll try and make it as simple as I can. So when a gateway organisation like Hampshire Chamber of Commerce apply for additional placements, it can take 30 days. If it takes more than 30 days, Coral rightly chases me and I escalate that to the national team. And we did that regarding 3 different grant variations that Coral had sent in. Now, I agree, it was very frustrating for you all, and it took me a long time to get an answer, but the answer did come through last week when I was on leave, so I was able to update Coral yesterday. There are a couple of reasons why these were delayed, or 3 reasons really. So first of all, if a grant variation is received and they still haven't made a decision on the one previously, they bulk them together. So they actually ended up looking at 3 different grant variation approvals at the same time, which caused an initial delay. Then, unfortunately, it had to go to a complex case team because there were a couple of employers who shall remain nameless, who were taking advantage of the scheme by applying for opportunities with several gateway organisations nationally to gain extra places that they then couldn't support. So it did have to go to a complex case team. Once they'd done what they needed to do, it also tipped Hampshire Chamber of Commerce over an 800 placement mark. Now, they have different levels of people who can agree the grants. So the more money you're effectively asking for from DWP, the higher up the chain it has to go to get signed off. When it goes over 800 placements, you're talking over £6 million worth of public money. So it goes right to the top of the tree to be approved. And therefore they meet less often because there's less people with that number of vacancies, and that has added a further delay. So we are hopeful that those 3 additional grant variations, so the extra vacancies that Coral has asked to be approved, will all be approved. We're hoping on the 9th of July. We think that's the next date that the grant panel are meeting. I should get more information this week. So I appreciate that's quite a complex answer, and it has been very frustrating for all of you, but there were a few things in there, particularly those not so good employers, shall we say, who sort of screwed it up for everybody else, I'm afraid.
Okay.
So it's a roundabout answer, but it is where we are at the moment.
That's very helpful, Kerry. Lily, does that help you? You're on mute, Lily. Oh, we couldn't hear you then.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for your question, Lily. Let's additional placements. Can we apply for additional placements? Is that one for you, Coral?
Sorry, I was trying to reply to the grant variation. I've managed to throw myself out, get back in. I still haven't managed to answer the grant variation question. So can I answer that one first? The grant variation, when we first applied, we were given a grant. So each time we add to the grant, that is called a grant variation. And whoever asked that question, I'm really sorry I didn't get back to you. I did try. Anyway, what was your question? I'm sorry, Rob.
No, it was about additional placements. Once you've had one application, can you apply for additional?
Yes. And there's there is a lot of those on the grant variations that are sitting with DWP now. Also, they introduced something a few weeks ago whereby we can job swap. So if we've been notified by companies that they no longer want their placements, we can apply to DWP to have those jobs swapped to other people. And that's been quick. However, I would say those are few and far between. So please don't everybody think that I've got endless amount of placements, because I actually do not.
Okay. Here's a sort of from John Morrow. John, would you like to?
Hi, yes. Hi, everyone. Yes, so when we go through the usual recruitment process and we ask all the right questions, hopefully, the candidate then spends several weeks with us and we're training them as we go along. What happens if that candidate turns out to be not what you expected? They start doing things wrong in the business. For example, when I used to work in the city, my biggest problem was young people, specifically in the era I use, constantly on their mobile phones during the day. So if you've got someone who's not following the rules of what you require as a job and is on a mobile phone or doing things, can you then end their contract straight away? Do you have to give them some sort of notice period? And can you report that person back to the relevant people so they're aware of it?
Good question, John. Coral, is that another one for you?
No, that's
Yeah, I can answer that one.
That's a Kerry one.
That's one for me. Absolutely, yeah. Once they're on placement, they are an employee. So you would treat them the same as you would any other employee. So if you would normally give notice, then you would give notice. Obviously, we would ask that you try and support that young person before you just get rid of them. Make sure they're getting all the support they need to sustain that placement for as long as possible. But if things really aren't working out or they're not appropriate, then you would do exactly the same as you would with any other employee.
Great. Thank you, Kerry. Coral, I
In
assume
addition, if they...
Go, Kerry. Go on, Kerry.
Sorry, I was just going to say, in addition, if they've been there less than 6 weeks, you can re-advertise the position again.
Less than 3 weeks, is that?
6 weeks.
6 weeks. Okay.
And what sort of notice periods would you have to give them? A week, or just end it there and then?
Well, that's going to, it's going to, if you've given all the support you possibly can, and you've spoken to them about their behaviour and the fact that it's not acceptable, etc., then, the same as you would any other employee, they are anybody else.
Okay. Does that help, John?
Does that make sense, John?
Yeah. What I've taken from that, Kerry, as we do, you treat them like an employee and you provide all the support and documented processes to have those conversations and development conversations with them. So thank you, John, for your question. Another question that's come in, capped at 25 hours, or can we increase their working hours? Is that an option?
Yes, yes.
It is.
However, the difference would need to be paid by the company that's employing them. So DWP will pay their salary up to 25 hours at minimum wage, including their NI and any other contributions that have to be made. And then after that, a lot of companies are employing young people for more than the 25 hours. They're also giving bonuses if they produce a certain amount of work. So as they would treat all their other staff, they're treating the Kickstart person the same way.
Great. Thank you, Coral. We've got a question that comes in from, I think this one is from Ash Phillips. Ash, would you like to ask your question of the panel? He's trying to unmute.
Yeah, hi. So I've been led to believe that Indeed is quite a good way to recruit these placements, perhaps a little bit more quickly than via the normal route. If we get an applicant via Indeed, can they kind of reverse engineer the process? So can they then apply to, they might not be on the DWP's books, they might not be registered with a job centre. Can they do it in reverse? Is the long and short of the question.
They do have to be on universal credit, even if they come to you through Indeed. If they're on the universal credit, then they go back to their work coach and they say, I'd like to apply for this job. And the work coach will contact you and put them through as a potential employee, and that gives you an ID number, which is like 4 and 4, so it's made up of letters and numbers mixed up, and that's the ID number that gets you the £1,500. So you really have got to do it that way, otherwise they're not on the Kickstart scheme. And obviously you know that you want to take them on at that point, so you're just going to employ them, aren't you?
Yeah, can I come back on that?
Yes.
Please do, Ash. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess the real question is, if someone isn't on universal credit, perhaps they're just a job seeker, they found us through Indeed and they're interested in the scheme, they want to apply. We need to say to them, yes, we'd like to take you on, however you need to be on universal credit. Can they then go and apply? Can they then register with the local job centre, if that's the right terminology now, and do the process in reverse, if you like, because they may not be looking at they may not be looking through the DWP for these roles.
I think that's an answer. This is Kerry's, moved into Kerry's territory now.
Kerry.
Sorry, Ash breaking up a lot, so I didn't catch that at all, I'm afraid.
Right. Can you hear me now?
Your line's a little bit broken up.
Yeah.
Kerry.
Yeah. So the question is, if we attract someone to the placement via a different route, i.e. Indeed or a local advert, and they're interested in the role, can they then and they're not registered with the DWP or the job centre, can they then register in order to be accepted onto the Kickstart scheme? So we kind of do it in reverse. They're not registered with the DWP before they find us.
Yes, you can. But I mean, if it wouldn't, we did have a case where someone was working somewhere else and wanted to leave that job to join Universal Credit to get a Kickstart placement. Obviously, that's not really within the spirit of what Kickstart is. It's about supporting young people who are unemployed to get jobs. So I suppose there would be a query as to why they weren't already on Universal Credit. But yes, in theory, you can do it that way round.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks for your question, Ash. I think that may answers Peter's question as well on the chat. I'm just going through the questions one by one, looking for, universal credit. Agreed in the last couple of weeks, I've not had an applicant. So this is again, Lily, your question about you've got a lot of live online jobs since April and not a lot has happened. Was that answered by the previous question?
Yeah, I think I put it in there twice because it wasn't.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
So Steve, you've got a question about once the 6 months is up, what are your options? Steve, did you want to put that to the panel?
Yeah, we've got a guy who's really good, and he's working on our help desk at the moment, and we see him as the right candidate to stay with us. So at the end of the 6 months, what happens then? Do we have to tell, what happens to the grant? Do we tell people that we're taking this guy on? How do we move forward with that?
So who would like to pick that one up?
Yeah, that's another one for me. Yeah, I'll take that one. I think most of them are going to be for me, I think, aren't they? Yes, of course. I mean, that's great news that one's working out really well and you want to keep him on, him or her. Sorry, I think you said him.
I did.
We would appreciate that feedback, because I think there will be some data gathering at the end of Kickstart to see how many did end up staying in their Kickstart placements. Obviously, the grant will end. And if you've got a position you can take them onto, that's absolutely brilliant. For those of you that maybe think you won't be able to do that for whatever reason, whether that's a financial reason or what have you, we would ask that you, about month 4, if you know you're not going to be able to keep them on, you start working with them to help them look for other sustainable jobs or apprenticeships, for example. So you might want to link with your local apprenticeship providers and see if they can move into an apprenticeship placement. Or you might want to open up your little black book of contacts locally with other businesses via the LEPs, etc., and obviously the chamber, and get them placed elsewhere. You might know another employer who would welcome taking somebody on that you've already vetted for them for 6 months, but obviously you've given them that experience, you've given them that support, mentoring, employability support around their CV and interview techniques. So you've done all that within that 6 months. So hopefully if they're unable to stay on with you, you'll be able to move them on into other employment.
Does that help, Steve?
It does. Thank you.
Great. We're going to move on to the subject of training. Yvonne, you asked this question, also Craig. What are the requirements for an organization that takes on a Kickstarter for training that Kickstarter? Is that one for you, Coral?
The training, and we have to have, we do due diligence on this. They have got to have CV and cover letter writing together with interview techniques training. Now, some businesses are able to produce this in-house, and we ask them to evidence that they've done this, how well they've done it. Others cannot do that. So we have put in place training. Yourselves are involved. We've got Steve, who's involved. He's Skills for Business. And we've got Shelley involved, Progress to Success, to provide this training. We've got all of you involved because we weren't sure quite how many people would apply, but we are following that up. We do the due diligence. So each business must make sure that this young person, whether they stay or whether they leave, has had this training.
Mm.
Chris, did you comment on that, on the training?
Yeah, well, we're, you may not know this, but we actually provide employability training through Hampshire Chamber of Commerce. So the next training session for Kickstarters is on the 5th of July, I believe, that we're involved with, that we're delivering. Coral is right, it's interview technique, it's CV and cover letter writing. We also provide a communications module called Shine Online, because the vast majority of interviews, job interviews these days, are online on Zoom, which is quite different to if you're being interviewed in your bedroom at home as a young person seeking work. It's different to turning up at a company office and going in for an interview. So we provide that as well. As part of the scheme, for every Kickstart recruit, you receive, or the business receives £1,500, and that is to provide equipment and any mandatory training, depending on their roles, but also to provide and cover for the employability training, which is a CV, interview and cover letter writing training. So that's our experience with that. And we've run one of these sessions so far, and our next one is on the 5th of July, and that can be booked through Hampshire Chamber of Commerce, I think through Ben.
Great, thank you, Chris. On that note about the 1,500, I know Gregory White. Gregory, if you're on the call, you had a point about the delay in getting this £1,500 for your business. So would you like to put that to Kerry, probably?
No, it's me. I had an email last night, and I will talk to you about that, Gregory, but face to face. But some of it's been paid and there's questions on others. So we need to speak about that, but I don't think this is the place.
Okay, great. Thank you, Coral.
Can I just say, Coral, I won't say anything like on a personal thing, you say face to face. Can I just say the Kickstart scheme with Coral and with DWP, we've taken on several Kickstarters, and it's just phenomenal with the diversity we've been able to take on the Kickstarters, and the way it's been supported has been absolutely top notch and excellent. So thank you.
Gregory, thank you very much. We'd echo that as well, Coral and team. I'm just going through the questions. Holly, as we're looking at the next question, perhaps there was a slight break in rifling through these questions as we are. Holly, tell us a little bit about your experiences at Mission, but also the experience of being selected, inverted commas, all the way through to where you are now.
Hey, hello everyone. I'm Holly, and I graduated last year with a marketing degree. And obviously it was very hard to get a job because of obviously COVID, it was really hard. So I decided to apply for Universal Credit. And they were really helpful, like really amazing. Helped me obviously find this job with Mission, which is a digital marketing graduate Kickstart scheme. And it's just been great ever since, really. Obviously, I still get help from the Kickstart, like the government side. They call up every so often just to check in, see how we're getting on. So that's really good as well. We started on the 10th of May. So been here about 8 weeks now, it's been. The first, we had like a little induction like 2 weeks before we started, which was really helpful. So we just got to meet everyone, which was really nice. So when it was our first day, we felt more settled just to get to know everyone and a bit more about obviously what we would be doing. And then a couple of weeks in, we started having obviously Zoom meetings of all of the associates and things like that, which was really helpful just to get to know everyone and obviously what Mission do as a company. After that, we have actually been on like Mission's personal training. So the other week, me and Misha both went to Ferrum Innovation Centre and did like a communication coaching session with one of the other guys, one of the deliverers, which was really, really helpful. So I would recommend, if you have like coaching or training, or let the Kickstarter sit in on what you do, because it does really help. It's really, really good. And obviously we are going to receive communication training, which we have already started. We have done one Shine Online so far, but then we're also doing just little sessions as well, which is very helpful.
Great. Thank you, Holly. We're going to come back to you in a second, Misha. But let's go back to our questions on the chat. I know, Matthew, you had questions about general delays in, I know we covered this earlier on. No, not Matthew, perhaps others.
No, I did have a question, but it's not been covered.
Okay, why don't you, the floor's yours, sir.
Thank you. So I'll go back to 9:38 where I've got my comment, and huge support from Coral, but the issue is this, and I've been getting private messages throughout this call on this. The reason given earlier is to do with recent times. What people do not understand is why it's taking so long if you applied in December or January or February or March. So there's something not going right here. It took me, I applied in September and my Kickstarter started on the 1st of April. So hang in there, it does take 6 months. Of course, the scheme will run out in 6 months' time. So the delay is causing huge frustration. It's also causing huge embarrassment. I've brought 50 businesses to this scheme. 4 of them have got through so far. So something is not going right, and there's no answers coming from DWP. And I do not want Coral to be put in the position of having to apologize. It has nothing to do with her. She is wonderful and is handling it amazingly, but it's just not good enough. And I'm just really frustrated by it.
No, Matthew, I can hear the frustration in your voice.
Well, let's get some answers.
Yeah, that one's for me. So yeah, no, it's not for Coral to apologise. That is for me, DWP, to apologise for. As you will already have heard, the Kickstart scheme was introduced last year in a huge rush, particularly for a civil service. That, you know, everyone knows civil services don't move quickly when they're putting in these big campaigns. Just to give you a bit of scale on this, before Christmas, we had national teams looking after Kickstart, and we had one person in Dorset, Wiltshire and Hampshire and Isle of Wight who looked after Kickstart for our whole district. Just a few months on, I was put in post in the middle of April, I think, towards the end of April. I joined the Kickstart team to specifically look after our gateway accounts. By then, we had over 40 people in our district. looking after Kickstart. So as you very rightly say, there were lots of delays at the start, and we had a bottleneck at every single stage of the application process. We had a bottleneck with the applications, we had a bottleneck with the grant approvals, we had a bottleneck getting the job placements put on. But what we have got now, and I know this, won't ease your frustration for back then, is we've got much clearer timelines on when things should happen. And I've also got very clear escalation routes when I can raise things. So if Coral says to me, I sent these up 2 weeks ago, we've got, like, for example, there's 14 days for job placement templates to be put on the system once they've been sent up. If that hasn't happened, I'm able to escalate that on behalf of Coral and follow that through. So I can't really speak for what happened before, in that I wasn't part of the team. I can only apologise. I know there were lots of delays, but we do now have systems in place to make sure that things move a lot quicker than they did.
Matthew?
So what happens for employers who have to pay their Kickstarters before they've received the money? Been mentioned in the chat.
I can send out, so I can send out to Coral the schedule of payments. So what happens is once you tell DWP that you've taken somebody on, the £1,500 arrives 11 days later. And I think, I'd have to double check, but I think Coral's then got 5 days to get that to you, although I'm sure it doesn't take that long. Following that, the 6 grant payments following that, the first one comes 6 weeks later. There is a very specific reason for that, in that they have to check with HMRC through the real-time information that the salaries have been paid. And then following that, they're every 4 weeks. But I can send out a guide that Coral can share with you all.
Thank you. We've had the guide. It's the point that the money is not coming in time to pay those Kickstarters. And it's not 5 days. Coral told me it comes out monthly from Hampshire Chamber.
Oh, no. Matthew, no. That's your invoice. That's our invoice to you. But if the money comes in, like with your Kickstarter, you had that within 5 days. So okay. It's different, the invoice that you write us, because we've got a referral system with you. But actually for the Kickstarters, in fact, Eddie's excellent. She deals with all the money, and she normally makes sure it's within 24, if not 48 hours. So there is absolutely no time lapse with that money.
So no employers having to pay people out of personal loans, hopefully.
Well, it's always in arrears, isn't it? The money is always going to have been paid in arrears, and we knew that right at the very beginning. There was an email that went out to that effect before anybody took any Kickstarters on. So you would always be paying up front, but I do agree, and certainly with the 1,500, it isn't in within 10 working days.
If you any have not been received within 11 days of notifying, then I can escalate those.
So Kerry, would you have your contact details? Could you put those in the chat for everyone and Coral?
No, I think it needs to go via Coral, and then Coral escalates it with me.
Okay, Kerry. So if you've got a query on payment, then please get in touch with Coral via email, and I know she'll do her best to expedite that for you. So, Misha, tell us about your role at Mission and the Kickstarter and how it's helping you. You're on mute. Can't hear you, Misha.
Thing died. It's died. Oh, can you hear me? Okay, cool. Hi, I'm Misha. I'm the graphic design graduate at Mission Performance. I graduated last year at Southampton Solent University. I went on to Universal Credit because I got made redundant at my previous part-time job, which was in July. So I actually went on to Universal Credit in August of last year. I found out about the Kickstart scheme in, I want to say, March, April. It was quite an easy process for me. So if you're wondering what the process is through our side, it's quite simple. It's hard to see all of the options out there, but my work coach was actually lovely enough to read out all of the options, and I just got to pick and choose which suited me best. Since I've been employed at Mission, we came in and we had everything purchased and ready for us. We had our own desks, chairs, computers, screens, everything was ready, and we sort of took it in as a slow process, sort of warm us up to get used to everything and people around us. And yeah, we've just been able to do loads of training, which has been beneficial. Obviously, I've been able to learn a lot. They've also been able to listen to the skills me and Holly have from what we've learned in our degrees. So not only have we been able to help them, they've helped us. So it's been quite a good experience in the fact that we're not getting treated any differently. We're just part of the team, and it's not like anything's different. So yeah.
Thanks, Misha.
No worries.
Thank you. So we've got a few more questions in the chat. If you'd like to raise a particular question, go to reactions and raise your hand, and we'll come to you. If you look at the bottom of your toolbar, click on the raise hand, and you can ask your question directly to the panel. So I'd encourage you to do that. Who'd like to be first in raising their hand? Martin. Martin?
Hi, guys. I just wanted to know, I think one of the gentlemen, I think it was Chris, you said originally that you specified that you wanted graduates within your JD. Is that okay to do that?
Oh, yeah, we wanted, as I mentioned, we wanted to take on people that were going to be right for us as a business, so that the whole scheme could be worthwhile for both them and for us as a business, rather than, and I think what the government's trying to avoid is people being, or young job seekers being loaded into companies as just extra hands, basically, paid for by the government. So we specifically asked for graduates because that's what we needed. We're a small company, and so we interviewed and we recruited based on that. And you know, in the applications, the job description was we wanted a marketing graduate and a graphic design graduate. So that's how it worked for us. Obviously, it's role specific, and you know, I mean, when I reflect on our experience, actually, once we had applied and filled in the template and submitted that through Coral and Hampshire Chamber of Commerce, what happened afterwards was exactly like any other sort of recruitment process. We received CVs via email. We weeded through the CVs ourselves and shortlisted and then interviewed, and then we effectively employ Holly and Misha as you would do normally, and you get the grant that comes through. So for us, like I said, there was a big delay initially, but for us, the process after that worked, and it worked really well. So yeah.
Thanks, Chris. I've got just one more point. I think one of the other people were talking about the ability to let go somebody that don't fulfill the criteria that you're setting down. I assume that, yes, you would follow normal process within your business. Does the scheme, or do we set a probationary period?
Good question, Martin.
So there's a couple of things there. I'll answer that one first. So no, there's no probationary period. I mean, it's just a placement for 6 months. So again, you would use what you would normally use for your normal employees. With regards to the
Sorry, but based on that, if you're saying that we put forward a job description, would it be prudent for us to put in the job description that there would be a 3-month probationary period out of the 6, for example?
Yeah, you could do if you think it's necessary. If you think that's necessary, I would keep the job description as simple as possible. And going back to the question regards graduates, you know, the point of Kickstart is to help young people who are unemployed get their first job. We haven't got many graduates left, I have to say. Obviously, there might be a new tranche coming our way soon. Obviously, with this time of year, there might be some more. But the spirit of Kickstart is to help a young person who's struggling to get on that into the labour market, into work. If you really do need a graduate, of course you can put that in, but just be aware it will be harder for us to fill that vacancy. If you're willing to sort of support someone and train them up to get them where you want to be, we're more likely to be able to fill that for you quickly. And one of the things we want to do is to fill these placements as quickly as possible. To do that, if you keep that recruitment process as straightforward as possible. So again, some of you will have recruitment processes that you are required to follow. Others will be able to simplify that recruitment process so that we can get people in as soon as possible. So for example, we're encouraging you as employers to come into your local job centres to recruit, interview and recruit people on the day. We need to speed this up now. It's been, we're trying our best to accelerate the starts, as Coral will let you know. She's got a lot of placements with less starts on. So if you can go into a job centre or simplify your application form, we can get these moving a lot quicker.
Thank you, Kerry. Does that help, Martin?
Yeah, no, that's good. Thank you very much.
Good.
Can I just say, I've had a conversation with the job centres, and it does seem to be one of the sticking points is the CV, because they haven't really had a lot of education on how to write a CV. So if any of you have requested one, it might be better if they just send you an email stipulating what their grades are with their GCSEs, etc. And maybe that might be a little bit faster, but the CV does seem to be a bit of a sticking point.
Yeah, there's also a simple application form that we can share if you want to use that. I mean, one of the difficulties with a CV is that a lot of them haven't got much in the way of experience or qualifications to put on a CV, so it's not going to tell you who they are or what they're about.
Yeah.
We found a lot of employers. I mean, one of our employers, for example, is giving anybody who applies a minimum of a 15-minute telephone interview, because she thinks if they've bothered to apply, she's going to talk to them. And she's finding that is much more, it speeds up the recruitment process, but she's finding out much more about them than she would from a CV or an application form. She's finding out who they are, what they're about, what sort of personality they've got, whether that personality would fit in with her business. And again, she's doing that face-to-face in some of our job centres, and where that's not appropriate, she's doing it over the phone or via Teams. Or Zoom or whatever it might be. But yeah, I mean, it's just about giving these young people a chance, really. We do put them on CV writing skills courses and that sort of thing. But again, we're trying to speed this up to get them into work as quickly as possible.
Great. That's a really good point, Kerry. It's something that we adopted at Mission. Chris interviewed Holly and Misha over Teams. And would you put a link to that form on the chat if you haven't done already, Kerry?
Yeah, it's not online, so it's a Word document, I think. So again, I'll send it to Coral so she can circulate.
Thanks, Kerry. Carol, you've got a question. We'll come to you, Ash. Carol first.
Okay. I know that we've got jobs live we've got a number of Kickstart roles live with the job centres. Is there a way to check, and some of these are running out, is there any way to check online what the status of each ad is and when it's likely to run out? So because I came into this partway through, I started at my role partway through the Kickstart scheme, so I'm starting to take over that. So I need to know where we are, and is there any way to find that out online?
Yeah, you can't see it online, Carol, but every job centre has a Kickstart employer advisor, and when your vacancies go live, their first job, or before they even go live, a couple of days before they go live, they will be in contact with you to talk through, again, your job description. Are there any changes they think that making would help you fill that role quicker?
Yeah.
Closing dates, all that sort of thing. And so you'll have a local contact in every job centre. So if you're, I don't know, whereabouts are you based?
We're based in Basingstoke, but we've got Kickstarts all over the country.
Okay, so if you're based in Basingstoke, it will be the local Basingstoke, or it'll be wherever the job is. They will contact you.
The main jobs are in jobs in Birmingham and Leicester, I think.
Yeah. So you'll have more than one employer advisor contacting you, I should imagine, to help you service those vacancies, because I wouldn't want to sort of talk for Birmingham about what their labour market's like and what their people are like locally. So they will have that contact with you. They will also contact you as the closing date approaches to make sure that, you know, you've filled the vacancy, or do you need the date extended, all that sort of thing.
That has not completely been my experience. That's why I was asking if there was any way to double check everything, because I'm not entirely clear where things are at the moment with our vacancies, and I want to make sure I'm up to speed and that I know when they started and when they're due to finish, so I can get them renewed.
If you'd like to email me, I'll do my best to find out.
Great. Thank you very much.
That's very kind of you, Coral. Thank you for the question, Carol. Ash, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. I think my question about wages has been answered. I wasn't aware that we paid them from payroll and then it was claimed back. But yeah, and that's the 4 week. That's a 4 week in arrears, I guess. And the second question was, if there are these interviews happening at job centres, how do we find out about that? And I guess that might have been answered because it's the job centre Kickstart coach would be in contact with us. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Kickstart employer advisor, as they're talking to you about your vacancies, they'll talk about the best way to help you fill them. It might be appropriate for you to go into a job centre to see people. If it's not, you might want to do a group information session so that young people can find out about your vacancies. So there's all sorts of different things we can support you with to help that happen.
Okay, thanks.
I'd encourage you to look at the chat. The chat will be saved, and you can save it by clicking the 3 white dots. You can save the chat, everything, and all the links therein for reference after the session. So there's a lot of great resources in there. We've got about 10 minutes or so left. Any final questions from you to our panel? Martin.
Yeah, hi. One quick question around utilising the university schemes like Purple Door and stuff, which enable you to recruit online. Would it be suitable for us to advertise through there and point people to the DWP setup and process, or would that be not the right thing to do?
Yeah, I mean, you can advertise externally in any way you like, as long as you make it very clear on the advert that the young people have to be on universal credit and have to apply via their work coach.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, could you, sorry, I don't really understand the work coach piece.
Okay, so these are the jobs can only be, every young person who's claiming universal credit will have a named work coach.
Okay.
All referrals to Kickstart jobs need to go via that work coach. So if someone comes to you direct, you won't get a payment from DWP. They do need to go via their work coach, who will refer them for the vacancy officially on our system. When they do that, that gives you, you'll know that somebody's been referred, you'll know their name, and you'll have something called a unique ID. If you then decide to take that person on, that unique ID is your key to getting paid. So that's why the referral must go via the customer's work coach.
Great, so thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Kerry. Thank you for the question, Martin. Elizabeth, you have a question.
Hi, any opportunities to mentor young people?
Could you say that again, Elizabeth? Slightly.
Any opportunities to mentor young people?
What, in terms of outside organizations from yours, mentoring your Kickstarters, or?
Yeah, mentoring the Kickstarters.
Okay, what specifically do you want with that mentoring? Get outside support to mentor yours, or for you?
Yes, just in terms of making sure that they gain employment or looking for jobs or employability sessions.
Okay, Elizabeth. Ross, please come in on that one.
Yes, thanks, Rob. I mean, there obviously within this scheme, there's the employability essentials that need to be fulfilled, and it's really up to the employer as to how they undertake that. But it's got to ensure that such things as, you know, CV and interviewing techniques and really just providing them with the skills to be able to pursue their career is an essential part of it. Now, the Chamber of Commerce, we put this into the chat, do work with a number of companies, including yours, Rob, Mission Performance, to be able to provide employability essentials training. But there could indeed also be ways in which mentoring along for the young person would be a good idea. And if anybody is actually providing those kind of services, then please, you know, feel free to get in touch with the Chamber of Commerce, and we'll see how those can be promoted. The important thing is to provide that kind of side-by-side support to the young person, so that their 6 months is not just around the skills that they're learning within the work environment, but providing with that confidence and those abilities to take that forward in being a platform to build a career. So such things as employability skills and the interviewing skills and building those areas of confidence that's needed. So Liz, yeah, that's quite a good idea as far as mentoring is concerned, but we'd have to look at that a little bit further as to how that would be shaped.
Thank you.
There's also, if I can add into that, you know, you as the employer will be doing a lot of that mentoring. You know, someone was mentioning earlier that their young person was looking at their phone too much. So part of the mentoring will be explaining to them what behaviours are appropriate at work and what behaviour isn't appropriate. So some of that you'll be providing yourself. In addition, if you've got anybody who's got health conditions or disabilities, there is also additional support available. Again, every job centre has a disability employment advisor, and part of their role is to help all people, not just our young people, retain employment if they've got a health condition and disability and they're struggling. So that could be by signposting to local support organisations who can help with that particular health condition, or it could be by accessing something called Access to Work, which is additional funding that's available from the government to support people to stay in work who've got a health condition or a disability. So that can be things like specialised equipment they might need, or even, you know, a specialist computer if they need special help with a computer. I know in the past we've used it for things like special software that will speak to them because maybe they're blind or whatever it might be. But also it's paid for transport costs for somebody who couldn't use public transport, so it paid for taxi. Specialist mental health support has also been provided. So just bear that in mind as well if you're dealing with anyone who's got health conditions or disabilities.
Thank you, Kerry. And access to those resources, is there one particular place where they can get a bit more information on that? A link in the chat, perhaps on your DWP website or Hampshire?
Yeah, I'll put the Access to Work details on the website. But again, every job centre's got a disability employment advisor, so they can provide you with sort of tailored support for whatever it is you need.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Kerry. Joe, you have a question?
Yeah. Hi. Well, it's been mentioned in the chat as well about getting the referrals through, but then you never get the applicant following up. Going back to what you were saying about the CV, that if they're struggling with that, is that what's putting them off applying? Is there anything we can do with that, regarding direct contact with them, or something to encourage them to make the application, or is there reasons why they're not just applying?
Okay, good question, Joe.
Yeah, I think there's an awful lot of answers to that question, Joe, to be honest. I think, yeah, for some people it might be their CV isn't great or they haven't got the confidence to apply. We're doing a bit of work with how many referrals it takes to get an application. And at the moment it seems to be, and I need to do some more maths, so don't quote me on this, it seems to be for every 4 referrals we make, the employer gets 1 application. Now, some of that could be that when they were talking to their work coach, they took away the details of 3 Kickstart jobs and decided to only apply for 2 once they got home, that sort of thing. Others could be a lack of confidence and their work coach does contact them 48 hours after they've been referred for a position to see if they need any support in applying. But again, one of the things we found that helps most is if we can just make that process as simple as possible. So whether it's a phone call, just to chat it through, whether it's coming into the job centre and seeing people face to face, anything like that to make it as simple as you can for them seems to improve the number of applications and then starts.
If we don't have their details to make that phone call, or to just we can't make it easy for them, like say if we've got the thing that they've applied, but we don't know who that person is apart from the name, so we can't contact them to say, I'll have a chat with them for 15 minutes and find out more, and not go through the CV process.
Yeah, I appreciate we can't pass on their contact details if we haven't actually applied. But again, I would speak to your local Kickstart employer advisor, because they will be able to contact that person's work coach and maybe make that approach for you.
Yeah. Again, if they've not applied, we should be getting in contact there. We've not had a response from them. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Great question, Joe. Thank you, Kerry. Kate, brilliant piece in the chat box. Did you want to come on and tell everyone about it?
Morning. Hi. So this Kickstarter joined me. It's actually going to be my first employee. So this is really new for me. So I've been sort of doing my research on things that I think will really benefit her at the end of the 6 months. But I'm just wondering really whether there are other small businesses or very small businesses that actually have very small teams and might either find it quite difficult to find the time or not really know what skills might be useful, whether we can sort of support each other in helping to break down the time we're going to have to allocate to supporting that person. So some of the sessions that I've booked in with her, it might be useful for her to actually have some socialization with other young people that are just getting into working. So I'm happy to open that discussion if anybody's keen.
Brilliant offer and suggestion, Kate. Coral, I suppose for coordinate like-minded characters like Kate and her business, I think we'd probably be up for joining something like that. Not on the danger of speaking on behalf of Bisha and Holly. I would imagine that'd be quite useful to mix with other Kickstarters and share experiences.
I'd be more than happy to, if I received an email, to share that through the Kickstart community. I think that's what I'm going to call everybody, because there's so many. So I'm happy to share your email with the community and ask them to come back to you, and maybe you can join up the dots between yourselves. Is that all right?
Yeah, no problem. I'll put my email address in the chat as well, in case there's anybody here that's interested in kind of maybe making a bit more of a team project of how we can support these people together while supporting each other.
Yeah, that's a brilliant idea, Kate. Thank you for that. We're up to 11:15. One final question and then we'll bring this to a close. So raise your hand if you've got a question. I know, John, you had one, but your hand went down. If you want to re-ask that question, you can.
Okay, it's a reverse question, really. It's to the 2 young Kickstart guys, Holly and Misha, yeah? On your journey through this process, is there any tips or ideas you could give the rest of the recruiters here for them to be a bit more aware? Is there anything you can suggest that would make things easier for us as recruiters? put you on the spot now, I'm afraid. It's all about the learning curve, isn't it?
We were just deciding who wanted to go first.
Where you going?
So just support, continue support all the time. And I personally, I think Misha is benefiting from alternative training as well. So if your company does do that, I know not everyone is the same as Mission, but if you do have like training days, for example, with your business, I think it would be really good if the Kickstarter went on them, just to get more out of it, out of the business, rather than just sitting. I'm not really sure what all the companies are, but for example, we're office based, so it is nice to get out sometimes and network almost with other people from other businesses. So it does help us in the long run rather than just at the time as well. So just get,
yeah. So I think as well, I would probably say like for us, obviously being able to have more connections as well means that if you decided not to employ us, then we can still have the connections you have as well, and they might decide to employ us in the future or hire us for freelance or whatever. But I also think when it comes down to if you're struggling getting people recruited, what I found was quite easy when it came to choosing what workplaces to recruit for or apply for. They if the simpler you make it for someone, the easier it is for them to contact you. So simply putting your email down, and just, even if I think one of the jobs I applied for, they simply just wanted to know a bit of information about you and some contact details, and just to email them. You can make it as simple as that, or if you want the CV, then put it down as that, but making it as simple as possible and just putting a bit of character in it makes it less intimidating for people to apply, because it is a bit intimidating. I know quite a few people who are also on Universal Credit, they're a bit embarrassed about it. They don't really know how to approach it. So the easiest way to make it for them to want to apply, just simple email, contact details, anything like that, will just make them have a little bit of confidence to just push themselves to apply no matter what.
Very valid points. Thank you.
Great question, John. Thank you, Misha. Holly. So a great session. Hopefully we've answered majority of your questions. Do save the chat. You'll see that. Click on the 3 buttons at the bottom of the chat and you'll be able to save the chat with all of those links. So I'm now going to hand back to Ross, to formally close this chamber.
Thanks very much, Rob. Well, I think we all agree that that was an absolutely brilliant session. Before I do anything else, I'd like to thank the panel for really taking this on, and I think they've done supremely well, and with no particular preferences any of that. I know how difficult it is to come out here and speak to an audience of sort of 40 businesses and respond to their quizzing questions and provide the kind of detail that we've seen today. So thank you very much to the panel, and thank you, Rob, once again for doing that so brilliantly in terms of bringing the whole piece together. Actually, the things that Holly and Misha said right at the end, I think sums this whole thing up. The key to this is, no support and no training is ever wasted. If you could just provide opportunities, exposure for the generation of the people that we're going to be employing, let's be facing it, in my sense, going to be paying my pensions in the future. It's very good to see that this talent is coming through and being supported so well by such brilliant companies. And it really is important that, since no training and no support is ever wasted, give them the opportunity to get out there and see and do as much as you possibly can. They're confident, they're able, they've got hidden skills, they've got opportunities that they're willing to grasp. Now, the whole point is that the last 18 months that we've been through as a country means that the talent that you've got in front of you through this Kickstart scheme is second to none. And every one of them, I think, can provide something to your company if you steer and you provide the right kind of channels for them. And if it doesn't work out with your company for whatever reasons, then there are lots of opportunities out there from other businesses who will be just looking for the kind of people that you've helped to develop. So I would say get involved in it, shout from the rooftops to others to get them to be involved in it as well. And as an intermediary, as a gateway, we're here to support you all the way. Final words really, and I shouldn't really be blowing the trumpet, but first of all, Kerry, thanks very much for all the support you're giving at DWP. This is so important to us. This is absolutely essential. But Coral also, thank you for all the efforts that I know you're doing on behalf of the businesses. We are here to sort of provide that bridge for young people who are feeling lost, not knowing where their career is going, and been through the most extraordinary 18 months of their life, to a position where actually in a few months or years' time, they're feeling self-confident and they're providing the kind of career progression and jobs to leadership that we all want to see. That we're the bridge to make that happen. We're just here as a function of that as a Chamber of Commerce, but it's you as employers that really make that difference. So we're here to support you. Please keep in touch with us. We will resolve any technical issues that there are, but most importantly, we're here to support you to make sure that you provide those experiences. Thank you very much, and keep at it. It's been a wonderful session. Over to you, Rob.
Thank you, Ross. Thank you very much for this morning. There's other Chambers of Solutions coming up and more to follow based on your feedback. So see you all again soon. Have a great rest of the week. Fingers crossed for kickoff later. If you're a soccer fan, if you're not, then watch Wimbledon. Good. See you all soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
I can stay on just for a sec.
Thank you.
Thanks, Holly. Thanks, Misha.
Thanks, Holly. Thanks, Misha.
If you're
Stay
still
on the
there,
line, actually, Holly.
Thank you. Pardon?
Stay on the line.
Okay.
Yeah.
if Kerry's still there, thank you. She's probably gone. I'll send her an email.
No, I'm still here. Thank you. Yeah, I was just going to say, thanks to everyone for, being so interested in the scheme. It's brilliant, isn't it, that there's so much interest. So Thank you very much for inviting me.
You and Coral earned your money this morning. Lots of questions coming your way.
Yeah.
But I looked at the chat box and there must have been about 20 questions. I've never seen so many questions in there.